Let's go on to the next step, which is the location services. Sitecore uses a max-mind GeoIP lookup to look up information on the domain name and the business. It is also able to group reoccurring visitors that are coming from the same DNS. So for example, we have a company coming from envision.com. Based off the max-mind GeoIP lookup, we can group particular users based off their identification session ID that Sitecore Online Marketing Suite captures. So what do we have now in the context? The kind of information we can gather is that this is a particular person's third visit. It might be their 9th request to a page within this particular session. We'll also know at this point what business or corporation they are from and what part of the world they are from as well. Let's go to the next step, which is visitor profiling. A profile basically adds up scores depending on what a person has visited in their website. This can be aggregated via either average, sum, or percentage. So for example, we have our visitor that has accessed our site. They have some profile scores for executive, marketing, authoring, and IT. Based off their new session that they've done in this new HTTP request, we can get new scores and it can be aggregated so when the person logs back in, we have all the scores collated. And this is what generates our session reports within the Sitecore Analytics reporting system. So what do we know now? We know now some of the different profile scores that this user has and what they are interested in our site. We can also gather things like lead scores and how much they have purchased within our website as well. So the next is the dynamic response engine. This basically assembles a personalized, language-aware, device-specific response based on all the pipeline steps that happened before this. So for example, based off all the information that we have gathered in the steps before, we can render up the Netherlands site in the Dutch language using the content item product, and we could also render it in the iPhone device view. So for example, we can use the profile scores that we have built over time during this session or the previous sessions to change and personalize this particular person's experience on the website. Let's have a look at the DB architecture. The session table is by far the most important table in the entire Sitecore Analytics database. It is related to all other tables via a primary or foreign key, apart from the status table, and can be thought of as your point of access to all information you want to retrieve from the database. All website visitors create a new session every time they visit the website, and this is recorded in the session table. So, such information as the session ID, the timestamp, the IP, the domain, what site they accessed, etc. can all be accessed through the session table. If you study any of the existing reports that already exist in the Sitecore Analytics system, you can see that the session table appears in majority of the SQL queries. If you would like to see a full database diagram, there is one that ships with the OMS that is available under the Database Diagrams folder in SQL Management Studio called dbo.sitecore. Let's have a look at the Analytics API. First of all, the Sitecore Analytics API is abstracted out into its own assembly, which lives in your bin directory. It is called sitecore.analytics.dll. So, if you would like to start working with the Analytics DLL, you simply have to add it as a reference within your Visual Studio project. To start accessing the actual Analytics database information, we have an object which is called Sitecore Analytics Data Context. All we need to do is specify the connection string, and now we have all the Sitecore Analytics connections we need. So, we can start querying our database right now. For example, if we wanted to get all pages which had been visited in the current site context, we can use a link statement and our data context to join on the session table with the multi-site table. This will basically return all the different sites I have within my Sitecore installation and all the sessions that have occurred. Next, I could use this particular query to select the items from the database and count the hits. So, based off the previous link statement that I created, I can return the popular pages and the number of times they've been accessed in the session. Based off this, I can now sort the items by how many hits it has received to generate a popular pages report. So, Right now, I have an IEnumerable collection that stores a class called popular item. All I'm wanting to do is take off the top X items and display them in a presentation component. What I'll just say is I'll base this off a popular item class that I've created that consists of a Sitecore ID and an integer that counts the number of times this particular page has been requested during the session. Just another note, almost all joins will be done with the session table, as everything physically links back to it during the session of the user, apart from the status table. So, if we wanted to take these queries that we had done on our database and put them into a presentation component, all we need to do is create a sublayout, for example. On the page load method, we simply want to call our getPopulaPages method and bind it to a repeater that we put onto the ASCX control. Make sure that you implement the onItem dataBound event, and you'll want to put the following code in that will generate a hyperlink to the actual item that is popular. So, all we have to do is, once we've compiled this particular piece of code, is add it through the presentation details. So, if we select any one of our pages or content items within our system and add our new show data control that we have built in the past two previous slides, then we get the following result on our demo page. Analytics API and tagging. Tags are values that are added to the visitor's global session. Tags are useful to apply filtering to visitors or to visualize specific highlights in the Sitecore statistics. So, for example, we could tag a particular user with information that we have generated out of a form that they've filled in. So, for example, they fill in full name, email, country. We want to use this and tag this information against this particular person's session and session ID. So the next time they come back into the system, we know all the information about them. You can, of course, add your own types of tags within the system. So, how do we do this? In this example, we're using basically our analytics tracker object, and we're wanting to check if it's and get the current tracker and make sure that it is not null. Then what we want to do is simply just append a new tag called username based off a string that we have got out of a particular form. Once you view the new session trail, you will now see that this session ID has the word John Doe attached as a tag. The Sitecore.analytics tracker object gives you the context tracking object, which allows you to reach, modify, and raise analytics for current page, previous page, and the next page. Each of these returns the analytic page object, which allows you to invoke other analytics. So, for example, if we wanted to trigger some type of event that occurred on the previous event, here's how you would do it using the Analytics API. How about the analytics configuration? Well, Sitecore abstracts the analytic configuration file out into its own include file that is located under your website directory, under app config, under include, and the configuration file is called sitecore.analytics.configuration. So, this allows administrators to make global changes to the functionality of the analytics system, including such things as turning auto-detect bots on and off, enabling or disabling the entire analytics system, specifying the log level of which Sitecore Analytics will log to your log files, specifying the long-running request. So, what does Sitecore Analytics specify as a long or slow page? Specifying the max queue size. So, for example, how many requests will Sitecore Analytics take before it stops adding new analytics to a system? You can also specify your maxMind URL. This is the URL that looks up your IP address and matches it with domain, matches it with your location, and so forth. This, of course, opens up the idea of you can insert your own type of GeoIP lookup application